University of Arizona, what his options are, and a whole lot of other stuff. Let's get started here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, we have done a lot of talk this year about the University of Arizona and, what their comings or what their strengths were, what their shortcomings were, all of that going into March Madness. And obviously the guy at the front of all this is Azuolas Tubelis. Now, as we've talked about many, many times, Azuolas Tubelis is a very, very good basketball player. The numbers kind of speak for themselves, 20-9, something around there. Azuolas, though, is not, I would not call Azuolas a big game player, a big moment player. We've seen that a few times so far in his career, basically always in the NCAA tournament. Now, if you watch the game against Princeton, you know that, yes, he put up numbers, but at the same time, he also certainly did not look like he was ready for that moment, like he wanted that moment. And there's no better point to that than what Arizona was able to do with at the last few seconds of the game. Azuolas has a wide open 16-footer. He kind of feebly dribbles it in, and guess what? It is blocked. And after that, he didn't really touch the ball. So again, there's nothing wrong with that. Some players are just built a little bit differently. I get that. But you also have to know what you have on your roster, and you got to be able to plan accordingly there. So let's talk, though, about what Azuolas' options are. First, he could try to go to the NBA. I do not view Azuolas as an NBA player, mainly because I don't think that he's generally tough enough. And on top of that, I think that he's more of a he's reliant on others, if that makes any sense. I think with when it comes to that, I think that we're kind of where we're at with Azuolas. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But, again, you kind of know what you got. I don't believe that he's going to play in the NBA, but I do believe that he could make a ton of money overseas. And that's probably where his future lies. But there are intriguing options if he were to come back to the University of Arizona. First, if he were to come back to the U of A, Arizona's a top 10 team. Now, again, you could say, Mike, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth right here with Azuolas. Well, excuse me. Well, you know what? Yes, kind of am. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the way it is. But if you were to come back as a top 10 team, now I think going into the year, I think you need to have certain guys that are going to be, more of your forefront. But that's cool. You get a big NIL deal from him. Which I certainly think that you could get for Tubelis. I think you could definitely get that. And all of a sudden, you got your starting front court of Azuolas Tubelis and Umar Ballo down low back again. But what that would also mean, though, is you're going to need other guys for Arizona to step up and I think become, that guy, to be able to become that player who are, and I think that starts with Kylan Boswell. Kylan Boswell, to me, is the guy, no matter what Azuolas Tubelis does, no matter what he declares, Kylan Boswell has to be that dude, in my opinion. He's got to be an all-conference player, and he's got to be the guy that has the ball at the end of the game. And I think that right now, this is a team that can do that. Now, with Kylan Boswell, it's fascinating, though, because, again, there's going to be this interesting kind of no man's land. Both sides, I think, are almost going to have to kind of defer to the other side. But at the end of the day, I think that Tommy Lloyd would have to come in and say, listen, here's what we're doing. Kylan Boswell, you're the guy. Azuolas, you're going to keep getting your mitts, all of that. But I do believe that if Azuolas comes back, you can't count on him being the dude at the end of the game. That's just not how he's wired, which is totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you want to say to yourself, man, Mike, where could I bet on Arizona next year? Great question. We got the answer. FanDuel. FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. Check it out. You could bet in-game. You could bet out-of-game. You could bet props. You name it, they got it. FanDuel.com. Check it out. This is the best time of the year. Well, one of the best times. Obviously, you don't have football. You got NBA playoffs here. You've got hockey. You got baseball. You got all kinds of different stuff. So, again, check it out. FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. All right, come back. We're going to talk about what a starting lineup with Azuolas Tubelis would look like. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk about what a lineup with Azuolas Tubelis would look like for the University of Arizona. I think first thing that you got to look at is I think that this is a team that could win, another top 10 team. Now, your starting front court then would be set. Now, on the wings, what do you have? You got Kylan Boswell. We've talked about him at that point guard position. Then after that, it's kind of some open spots. Now, again, actually okay with bringing Pelle Larsson off the bench again. I have no problem with bringing Pelle off the bench, mainly because I think that Pelle is very, very good. He can do a lot of good things for you out there, but I think he's also clearly just more comfortable in that bench position right there. And again, nothing wrong with that. Plus, I think it allows maybe some of his limitations to be hidden to a certain degree and to be able to some of his limitations to be hidden to a certain degree, but I also think that allows him to just kind of be him out there. So again, I'd like to get two difference makers at the shooting guard and the small forward position. That doesn't mean Larsson's not going to play 30 minutes a game because, again, there's minutes to go around, but I'd like to see Arizona be able to get different dudes in there. Some real difference makers. And again, like I talked about before, don't necessarily need all NBA players, but I need guys who can be all conference type dudes or somewhere around there. I need guys that can average probably 13, 14 per game and embrace the big moment. That's what you're looking for. And excuse me. And I think that Arizona should be able to get that. We've done this before as well. Tommy Lloyd has a lot to sell at the University of Arizona. He has a fun style. He gets his guys get up and down the court. He should be able to recruit players that embrace being at the University of Arizona and want to be here. He shouldn't have to. And again, I don't want to disparage Courtney Ramey or Seth Henderson at all because they were fantastic. And I think you got what you were hoping you would get out of both of them. But, again, those are guys that are 6th, 7th guys, something like that. And it kind of showed it at the end. This is a team that needs some guys that are just a little bit of a cut above that. And that is where Arizona's at right there. All right, now we're going to talk about if Arizona were to get those players, what that would mean. Come back with us. You're listening to Locked On Wildcats. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we're going to talk about what it would mean for Arizona to get some of these players that we've been talking about right here. First of all, because you've already got, I think, a pretty good core. If you had Tubelis, you had Umar Ballo up front, you're looking pretty good. And then if you got Kylan Boswell at that other spot, you're also looking pretty good. So there's 3 starting spots spoken for. But if you could bring in 2 double-digit scorers and guys that are athletic, guys that can make plays off the bounce, that makes Arizona a lot more difficult to cover. It makes Arizona far more intriguing. And I'm not really breaking any news right there. I'm just stating facts. Spitting facts, as the kids would say out there. But again, this is where it's at, though, with this squad. You got to get those 2 guys. So if you got those 2 guys, I think you're a national title contender. Because, again, Arizona has a good core, like we talked about. You got a really, really, really good big man combination up front. and you got a guy who I think is going to be an all-conference type player at the point guard position. You also got Pelle Larsson. You get those two scorers right there, I think that you're set. And again, there got to be guys that embrace that moment because Arizona is a little bit short on guys that embrace that. But again, that's up to Tommy Lloyd, though. Other schools have done it. Kansas State's done it. Texas has done it. UConn's done it. There's no reason the University of Arizona shouldn't be able to do that as well. And I have full faith that Tommy Lloyd is going to be able to do that right there. So that's kind of where it's at with this team right here. We got a little bit of a shorter pod today, but we'll be back with you tomorrow. We are going to break down all of the coaching hires over the last 4 or 5 years. Got some mixed grades here. The revenue sports obviously are going to be very, the grades are all weighted here, obviously. But the revenue sports are certainly going to get some fairly good grades right there. But again, you all have a great rest of your Thursday. We will be back with you tomorrow. Full show. You've been listening to Locked On Wildcats.